Hello everybody to another tutorial video. This time we'll be looking at the EQS system, the environment query system in Unreal, using that for some of our AI. So let's get started. So I'm starting from the first person template. You can see the environment's kind of as per usual. So this is the effect we're going for. Essentially, I've got a right mouse button held down here for like the placement of the gun. Now normally I would put a texture on there to show that it's like a ghost, and when you left mouse button while the right mouse button's down, it places one of them. Then the sentry gun activates and will shoot at any of the local boxes. So it uses the EQS system, so if I place another one, to determine what its closest kind of target is, and that's what we're going to work on for this first part of the tutorial. So I'll just set back my game modes so it's not using the test character. So we're going to start from the first person template basically. So the normal first person template obviously does that. So what we want is we want to change the character to be able to do the control system first. So you could take a duplicate of this just to make sure that you've got a backup, but I'm just going to open this guy here. So what you've got is, normally when you press the fire button, which is the left mouse button in most cases, you get this input action event called fire, and it's basically set up to play a montage on the animation, an animation montage on the arms, and then spawn a projectile in the right place. So we don't want to do that. So that's the first thing we want to do, is we want to break that link off, so it's not doing that. So just make sure, yep, can't fire. Now we could leave the input touch there for now, but we could always disable that as well. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to, thinking about the logic of it, what we want to do is when we start, we want to be able to place a sentry gun based on where our viewpoint is looking. So there's a few things we need to do with that. First one is we need to get our viewport and update where we think we're looking, in terms of, like, we're going to do a thing called a line trace in the physics system to find out where our viewport is actually centered on, and we'll probably need to do that in the tick. But before we do that, I want to set up something to start off with, which is the variable that we're going to use for the sentry gun, sort of, as we're, if you remember when I pressed the right mouse button, it showed the sentry gun in the world. I want to get that set up first. So what we probably want to do is we want to have our event begin play. Begin play. We want to set up the sentry gun mesh to start off with. So there's a couple of things we probably want to do. Let's start off with the actor for it. So object actor. So we need a new variable of type actor, and we're going to call that sentry place mesh. And what that actor is going to do is, that's going to be the thing that we use to display where the sentry gun is going to be placed. So we need to create that mesh when we start our character, when we create our character in this event begin play event. So if you, I'll just save that. If we go back to the map, I've actually set up a static mesh here called Sentry Ghost, and that's, we'll look at the component. It's basically two parts. Obviously it looks terrible because these are just placeholder images and stuff for the meshes. It's got a stand and it's got the gun itself. Now in later tutorial we'll actually update this so that it's got actually a skeletal mesh instead of a static mesh, because we actually kind of want to do animations on the sort of stand part, the part that holds the gun, so that the part that holds the gun actually tells the gun where it's going to point to. And we'll do that with animations, so we'll have to come back and do that later, but we'll do the simple version first, which is there are two separate meshes. You'll see what I mean when we go on to the later tutorials. So that's what we're going to use for the Sentry, what I call a ghost, or the sort of image of the Sentry gun where it should be placed, and that's what we want to display when we're inside our character. So let's just create that mesh first. So we're going to need a spawn actor. Spawn actor. Actually, let's just select the Sentry ghost because it's, yeah, there we go. And then spawn actor. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. So we need the class of the actor, which is Sentry Ghost. Let's just type it in. So what we're doing here really is we're filling in this variable. So we're going to spawn the actor. Now the transform we've got for it, we probably want to do it somewhere based on this guy to start off with. It doesn't actually matter, to be honest, technically, because we're going to actually hide it and update his position later on anyway. Apparently this boolean doesn't actually do anything. Somebody was posting on the forums that it didn't seem to do anything, and looking at the code it seems that's certainly true. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this variable. Let's just make that public so we can make sure it has been set. Set this variable with the thing that we've just spawned. So basically this creates an instance of that Sentry Ghost and fills it in into this Sentry Place Mesh variable. And then we probably want to do a few things on that. So let's just get that and call a couple of functions on it. So set collision, set that to enable collision, and we want to disable the collision on it, so we can drag that together, and that disables the collision. And we probably want to do set actor hidden, so basically we want to spawn it invisible and not colliding with anything. So again, Sentry Place Mesh is the target, and its hidden is true. So let's just comment this as we're going along. Creates the ghost Sentry gun and sets it to hidden and non-colliding. Let's just, when the player spawns. Okay, so that's the first part of it. So we should be able to get a Sentry gun at any time we want to actually show it. We could just enable, set it not hidden, basically, on this mesh. So the next part is that we probably want to update the location of the Sentry gun while we're moving it around. So the fire button is the thing that's actually going to spawn the actual physical Sentry gun, not the ghost version of it that we just created. But we probably want to have we want to have some other mouse button that says, right, well, the sentry gun should be visible now. So let's just do that up here, say. So what we're looking for really is like a variable that says, is the sentry gun being displayed or not? So I like to do that on right mouse button. So right mouse. So on right mouse button, when we get it pressed, we're going to need to set a variable. So let's add a variable in here, and it's a boolean because it's just saying whether we should show the sentry or not. So let's say update sentry position. Yeah, that's as good a name as any. So we're going to set that. If it's pressed, basically if the right mouse button's held down, then we should display the sentry gun. If it's not held down, we want to stop displaying the sentry gun. So if it's released, basically. And the one thing we probably want to do, well, we'll maybe come back to that. Now let's do that right now. So the sentry gun itself, when we're placing it, is going to be placed somewhere in the world, right? So we need a few variables for that. So we need the location of where it's going to be placed. So we'll put that in here as a vector. And we're going to use the position of where we last hit with a raycast as our hit location. What else do we need? We need to know, well, let's call that, that's alright, we'll call it the hit location, that's fine. We need to know what the orientation of the sentry gun is. So basically we need to know what angle to spawn it at. So let's add a variable for that, of type float, and let's call that sentry rotation. And we want to be able to rotate that, so let's just initialize that when we're starting to. So basically every time we press the right mouse button, we restart the rotation of the kind of sentry gun. So let's just comment that. Should we update the sentry gun position and show it? Now we could, I suppose, theoretically we could set the ghost on and off in here so that it actually draws it, but actually I kind of want to not do that because there will be places where we turn it off. Well, maybe we could do it in here, but I'll think about that later. So the other thing is we want to be able to rotate the sentry gun. So what I'd like to do is let's just add another variable, call it sentry rotation speed. We'll give all of these guys a default in a bit. In fact, let's do that. I don't know, 20, 30. Let's give it 50 or something crazy. Sentry rotation should default to 0. Update sentry position should default to false. So what we want to do is we want to be able to handle if we want to sort of rotate the sentry gun. Now my thinking was that it's probably not a bad idea to handle like the mouse wheel. So let's go to mouse wheel. Get a mouse wheel down. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say if the mouse wheel down's pressed, the mouse wheel sort of code's a bit strange really, but let's just handle it as a sort of mouse wheel event kind of thing. So we're going to say if our update sentry position is true, then we're showing our sentry gun, because this boolean says whether we're actually showing it or not. And if it is true, then what we want to do is we basically want to set the sentry rotation, right? So we want to set the value of this variable, and we want to set it to the current variable, so we need to get that, and we need to add, so we do a plus, so float, and we want to do sentry rotation speed. So basically, if we're displaying the sentry gun and we get a mouse wheel down, then we rotate it one way. So let's just comment that, rotate sentry in plus direction. Now remember that this is only going to go into the yaw value, so we only need one float. It's literally like the facing angle of the sentry gun. So we could do the same thing essentially for mouse wheel up. Mouse wheel up. And we're saying almost the exact same thing. So I just copied that up. So if the button's pressed, we're updating sentry position. This time we're going to do a minus, so we'll just drag that off there, minus, and connect those two up. So basically we're rotating the positive direction if the mouse wheel goes down, and the negative direction if the mouse wheel goes up, and obviously you could change these to suit your preference. Sentry in minus direction. So that's a few input handlers. We can just move those up a little bit for now. So what else do we need to do? Well, we need to update the sentry gun, really. So there's two things we need to do that we've got left. Let's just move this guy out of the way over here. So we want to actually create the sentry gun with this guy, and now we've only got really the sort of main chunk of this, which is to update the sentry gun position and make sure that make sure that this sentry gun is updated, so that when we press the fire we've actually got the right position to create the sentry gun at. So let's do that in the event tick. It's actually going to be pretty simple, but there are quite a few nodes that we need to do this. So we're only going to do this if we're showing the sentry gun, and that means that our update sentry position is true, essentially. Right, so what we're going to do, we need to do a line trace, essentially. So each update, if we're showing the sentry gun, we need to get the position in world space of where our camera's sort of center, where the first person gun's kind of center of view hits the world. So we do that with a thing called a line trace. So let's just do line even trace by channel. Now there are a couple of things here, right? So this is in world space. So where in the world do we start the line trace from? Where do we end the line trace from? Which trace channel we're going to use? We're going to keep it with visibility for now. Any actors to ignore, and whether we should like draw debug lines and that kind of thing. We can ignore self, which is good, so yeah, we'll leave that one checked on. So The question is, how do we calculate the start and end points? Well, if you look up in the original code, there's this sort of gun offset thing, so we can get the rotation of our first person guy, we can get the location of the first person guy, and we've got a gun offset which is like where the muzzle point should be for spawning the projectile in the first person guy. So we're going to kind of reuse that same code but in a slightly different format. So let's first off get control rotation. So that's the angle that we're currently looking through, and we're going to get the gun offset, which is the sort of muzzle point, and we're going to rotate vector. So we're going to use this rotator to rotate our gun offset. Yes, so we get it in the right sort of orientation. We're then going to take the output of that and we're going to add it to our location. So do a plus vector, and we can get actor location, and that's the other guy. Let's just clean those nodes up because they'll annoy me otherwise. It doesn't actually matter with the addition, so yeah, that's good. So this is the start point. Basically this is the muzzle offset for where we're starting in the world, and then we just need the sort of direction from that start point in the direction of our kind of forward vector, I guess. So we can do our first person camera as the actual sort of thing that's controlling the view, right? So we can get the forward vector from that. I wish I could spell. So we're getting the forward vector from the camera. We're saying, okay, so we probably need another variable before we carry on. So we want to know like how far we're going to, like, so this is the start of a line trace, this is the end, so we need kind of some distance for how far we're going to trace into the world. So let's just add another variable here called ray distance, and if we just save and compile that, we can put that at something like 2000, so it's like 20 meters in Unreal units. So we want to take that first person forward vector, which is a sort of normalized forward vector looking at the right angle, and we want to multiply that. So just do times, and we want to multiply that vector. Sorry, we need to multiply by a float, don't we, not by a vector. So we need to multiply, help if my keyboard would work, multiply by a float, and we want to use that ray distance as the distance, so we could maybe expose that value if we want to. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to take a pin off here and we're going to add, help if I did the keyboard properly, add those two vectors together. So the end point is basically this kind of forward vector scaled up by the ray distance added to the start point, so we should get a valid endpoint then. Okay, so let's just move that down a little bit so we've got it organized. And what all this is doing is basically giving us start point, end point. Could move that down if make it a little bit clearer, I suppose. So obviously the end point is a vector relative to the start point, scaled up by the ray distance. So what we need to do next is handle what happens when we actually hit the thing. Imagine that we've hit something. So we want to probably say, if we hit something, we want to check that the thing is, well, first of all, we probably want to check to see if we've got a sentry. So let's just get that and say is valid, because if we don't do the is valid check, we might be trying to place the location of something that doesn't actually exist. So if we didn't hit anything, we probably want to say show, well, imagine that we're pointing straight up in the air, right? So we won't actually hit anything in terms of the world. So we probably just want to stop displaying our Sentry mesh. So let's just make sure that we're checking to see if the Sentry mesh is valid. Valid. And then drag that guy into there. So basically both of these want to check to see if the Sentry mesh is actually sort of a valid thing. And if it is valid, we want to say it's hidden. So set actor hidden. And we could just drag that onto there. Yeah, so basically if we didn't hit anything and we've got a valid thing, then just hide it. Otherwise we did hit something and the thing's valid. So what we want to do is we want to well, first of all, let's just break out this structure, because it's actually quite a complicated structure for the hit result. So the thing that we hit, the point that we hit at, it goes in this location thing, right? So we probably want to say set the hit location that we got to the location that our line trace gave us, so we can store that and use that later. But we probably also want to well, we need to update the ghost, don't we? This sort of Sentry ghost thing that we've got, the place mesh. So let's do that. Let's set actor location and rotation. So we can drag off the location pin into the location, because that's where we want it to be. But the rotation's an interesting one, because we want to make up our rotation based on this Sentry rotation value. So let's do a make rotation. Want to drag in our Sentry's rotation in the yaw. Remember, yaw's the sort of vertical axis, so it looks gives you the horizontal angle basically. So we want that to be our new rotation, and the thing that we want to place right now is the Sentry place mesh. And the final thing we want to do is we want to make sure that it's not hidden. So set actor hidden in game, and again it's a Sentry place mesh that we're unhiding. So what this will give us is our character will basically show the Sentry mesh, the Sentry ghost mesh, while the right mouse button's down. So let's just check and make sure it does that. So if I press the right mouse button it updates the Sentry, and I can rotate the guy with my middle mouse wheel. Now if you want to change the how fast the Sentry rotates when you do the mouse wheel, obviously you can just change that Sentry rotation speed variable. So it updates so we're missing something to make it sort of disappear when your mouse goes up, but other than that, kind of, you know, I can right mouse button down and move it around, which is what we want. Okay, so let's just think about what else we need to do. So we probably want to make sure that when our right mouse button goes up, we probably want to set the actor to hidden. So let's do that now. Sentry place mesh. So we only want to do that if this guy's valid, so let's just check and make sure it is valid. If it is valid, then we want to set actor hidden. Let's just drag the Sentry so it should be hidden. So basically, if our right mouse button goes off, then the guy should be hidden. So let's just play that. Right mouse button down, he's shown. It goes off, it's hidden. Yeah, that's good. It's still rotating. Obviously, the rotation's reset every time I press it down, which is what we expect. So the final thing we need to do is we need to handle the placement of things. So like the left mouse button event. So remember, we've got the left mouse button event is actually mapped to an event called fire in the first person shooter example. So we're going to use that event to actually do the sort of placement of the guy. So what we got to do finally is just build the actual Sentry gun, and I kind of prefer to do it on release rather than on pressed. So again, let's do an if we are showing the Sentry gun. Then what we can do is we can do a function called spawn AI from class. Now we haven't actually created the AI class stuff for this yet, so we can't actually kind of test it until we've done that. But we know where it's been, where it should be placed, right? Because we've got the hit location for it, and we know what its rotation should be because we can literally just recreate what we did before. So make rotation. And we don't care if it's collision fail or not, so let's just take the Sentry rotation and plug it into the yaw. So the one thing we need to do after this, if this kind of works, is we need to stop updating the Sentry gun. So let's just set this to false. So we shouldn't be updating the Sentry. We might also want to make sure that the essentially that the Sentry place mesh is hidden. So let's just make a copy of these guys. Actually, we could just, no, let's just make a copy of these guys. So that will ensure that our placeable mesh, our ghost, is hidden when we place the real guy. So we need to fill in this class essentially. So let's go back to our example and let's create the Sentry gun itself. So